Hi everyone. Hi man. We are really excited to be here with you today on this webinar. We're gonna talk about initiation and manhood. We have a special guest today, Charles, with us, who really spent a great amount of time uh, with this subject. What does it mean to be a man? And he is also writing a book about ceremonies. He were researching ceremonies, and he's been facilitating men's initiation. Um, I will in a minute. I will let Charles to kind of introduce himself more in details. I want to just say that I'm really excited because I think that in today's work, this kind of topic, that what does it mean to be a man, um, what makes a man, and how to grow up from a boy into a man, it's like really an unknown territory. It's so hard to to get any information about it. Usually, what we hear and what we learn is from the TV, from commercials. And I think that it's really valuable to know how can we step into our own power as men. So, Charles, hi. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Would you like to say a few words about you and you relating to this subject? What do you do? How you came to this point, and what initiation and manhood means to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your group and to talk to you guys this today. What we connecting on is really something that's grown to be very important for me in my life as a man, as a husband, as a son, as a father. So I'm delighted to be here. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you guys. Um, I've always been a seeker of information, of culture, of religion, of spirituality, of all sorts, and very curious of how important ceremonies are in our life. Having been grown up as Roman Catholic, I was an altar boy and served many types of ceremonies growing up as a young man. But then my imagination, my curiosity went to understand other types of religions and faiths, so Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, indigenous cultures, and all of this. So really trying to understand, okay, these things clearly were important to us at one time and in one place, and they're losing their significance in our culture now, or at least they're changing. And it was maybe about 15 years ago, I was invited to speak with a gentleman who's in my part of the world in Canada became very well versed in indigenous culture and how Native Indians and how they came about in North America and the types of cultures and the types of ceremonies they had in place regarding matrimony, initiation, dying, and all these things. And over the course of the 15 years I was with him, I'm still learning from him. I've done numerous weddings. I have welcomed young ones into the world and said goodbye to a lot of old ones, and initiated a few people. Actually, I'm on my way next week to do an initiation ceremony in Northern Ontario for 15 men of different ages. I'm actually bringing one with me. He's 15 years old, and this is his first venture into being initiated. So that kind of sums up where I'm at right now. And like you mentioned, I'm writing about it, I'm reading about it, I'm researching about it now. What is it about initiation we're missing, right? Because it's definitely something that's very important, but I don't think we fully grasp how important it is in you coming to become your own man, right?
Charles, for the audience, if you don't mind me asking, when you say you're bringing these people to initiate them, what do you mean when you say initiate? them exactly.
Right. Well, what is yeah, the question of what is initiation, right? And I'll take a sort of more mythic approach to more natural based approach to get to sort of opening up what initiation means to me. I think biologically, us as human beings, because we are as natural occurring as any other thing we observe in nature, whether it's birds, trees, dogs, whatever. We all are naturally occurring things. We just didn't appear here as human beings. We've evolved into who we are now. But if you observe things in nature, there's a point in time where they transform from being, say, a larva or a caterpillar, and then there's a stage in which they grow into who they actually become to be, whether that there is a moth, a wolf, or whatever it is. And if you look at it from a biological standpoint, we're no different. There's a time and place where our biology, our genealogy changes from being a child to being a fully developed human being. And that happens around the time of puberty. But there's two things that are happening. One, biologically speaking, our bodies change, but psychologically speaking, our minds change, right? And instead of being wanting our parents to take care of us, we're trying to find our independence. We're trying to find our way in life and how to be a serving individual. And that happens around the same time as puberty. Initiation is in if you look at it in indigenous cultures in old ways, is the break between being a child and being an adult. And if we don't celebrate that moment, if we don't encourage the break, then we go on in this journey of always hanging on to our childhood, but hungry for being responsible adults. So initiation is that ceremony that takes place around our youth, that we call it adolescence or whatnot, or puberty, where that breakage between being a child and being an adult needs to happen. And when you look at older cultures, it's deliberately happening, right? We have elders who may have orchestrated a ceremony around it. We are broken away deliberately from our parents, especially from our mothers, and we're put in a place of isolation or seclusion or solitude, in which we are now looking at inward into our own soul, into our own well-being, into our own spirit, to say, okay, as a man now, what can I provide my world? What am I responsible for? What can I bring home? How do I provide? How do I protect? How do I become a human being functioning in this world? So the initiation is that little gap in space and time in which that break happens. And that's a fairly common understanding no matter which part of the world you're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. It's amazing to hear your perspective, to hear you sharing this. And what came up to me is when I first wrote that post on Facebook, which you answered to and led to this topic and webinar, is that the way I found initiation, and it's so to me there weren't and there is no like one ceremony, and probably it's something that would be useful, because I do understand what you mean. It like it gives to the psyche kind of a break point from being a boy to a man. What was ceremony, or what was initiation to me, is pretty much family, business, and all the responsibilities with this. So I just somehow it started to dawn on me that becoming a man through taking responsibility for my family, taking responsibility for my business, it's a kind of initiation. And I found that I becoming different person, but I didn't have that kind of full understanding what you are talking about. And I'm so glad that you brought into this topic a deeper understanding and talking about ceremonies. So I just wanted to bring this on the table, that probably to like the everyday guy, probably to the modern day people, it's more likely family, business, the way how we understand initiation.
100%. And I think what you're talking to is how we're dealing with that now, right? Because we don't have ceremonies like this anymore, right? So we do seek, you know, we can name a number of different ways in which we feel we have been initiated. You know, we learn to drive, right? So we get our license, we graduate from high school and go to university, or we get our degree, or some of us join the military, and we think that makes us more manly. Some of us find our growth happens in when we have a family, we get married and have children. We find our growth there. But the challenge with all of those things is that even the intent or the purpose behind all these substitute initiations or rites of passage, right, happen at different times of our lives. Some of us don't get married until our 30s or 40s. Some of us never start a business. Some of us might never, graduate from university. But all of us hunger for that time and place which we become this responsible, serving, man of integrity and strength and honor and all of these things. We all hunger for it. But instead of having ceremonies like I'm talking about, ceremonies which our elders, to your point, your post talked about who we look upon as our role models, was part of your post. We had elders before who oversaw our ceremonies and insisted that they happened. And every young man would go through that ceremony predictably at a certain time. So there was never room to guess when it was going to happen for them. But I think right now, particularly with some of the men that I coach, is that you're in your 40s or you're in your 50s and you're still showing your childhood. You're still showing, appearing like a boy and not taking full responsibility for everything you're doing because you haven't been initiated in a proper way where you recognize your body, you recognize your soul, you recognize your psyche in a way that, okay, now I'm becoming a servant of all humanity here and my family and my business and myself even, right? So it's left to chance now. And there's also ways that we actually, the way we look at initiation now actually hurts us. When you look at people doing, joining gangs, they rape women, they do violent things on top of each other, they get into drugs, and all those are negative consequences of that hunger to be initiated, right? And not being initiated in a proper, more honorable way.
This is the difference between, this is the difference between the wise man and the savage, if I'm getting it correct, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, the wild man and the savage, absolutely. I think there's a lot of men who have embraced their savageness, but you see it because they're so violent to themselves and to the people around them, right? But they mistaken their inner wild for that savage being. Absolutely. That's one of the things, the very powerful things, if you read the Iron John book, is recognizing your wildness versus your savage, right? And which one do you want to nurture? Which one you want to grow? Which one you want to feed? Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm seeing some questions here. I don't know if you want to.
Charles, I had a quick question for you. Do you see any difference between a rite of passage and an actual initiation? Do you see a difference there?
Typically, no. Like a rite of passage for me, and this is through my own learning, can happen at different stages of your life, right? So a rite of passage is even coming to birth is a rite of passage. Initiation is a rite of passage. Ceremony around matrimony, being married, is a rite of passage. So I think there's times and places through our life we want to celebrate our transformations, right? Initiation is one of those rite of passages, absolutely.
John, are there any questions in the comments?
Yes, I'll read what Samuel said. Sam said, "Hello, everyone. I think it serves self, serves family, serves community, serves nation, and serves the world. There are thresholds to each transition. The only problem in the world is people are stuck at point one and then try to jump or skip steps on the different thresholds in life."
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I think that there's, look at, I go back to what I was talking about earlier, when initiation properly happens at that time between childhood and adulthood. And if it doesn't happen, what happens, like, let's face it, children are self-serving, right? Their parents, their environment that they're in, all points to them, right? And if you don't come to recognize that that childhood needs to end, then you're going to continue life being self-serving. And everything becomes about you. And you see that in everything, even everything we see in our marketplaces right now. Everything is customizable, personalized. Everything is pointing to me, right? And I think that there's a consequence of not recognizing that there's a time and place where you have to learn to be responsible for the world. And that includes your family, and that includes the people that you work with, right? So I think that's one of the key things missing in manhood is recognizing when you have to stop being a boy and start growing up.
Well, aren't most children hardwired to like please their parents? So is there not sort of like an exception about selfishness with children since they just want to please? Sam said.
I think no, that's a powerful statement about children. I think there is a need to absolutely to please their parents. I think psychically children feel responsible for their parents' happiness. But understand too, parents also encourage that through how they parent. So one of the key things about initiation is informing the parent to stop parenting their children, right? Because our parents insist that we continue to be children. Because remember, the function of parenting is about parenting children. It's not about parenting adults, right? But without elders to tell parents to stop parenting, they're going to always continue to want to parent, want to guide us, want to inform us, want to condition us, and keep us as children. So there too is part of the formula of initiation, is separating us from our parents. So that the whole function of child to parent relationship is actually broken. And then that child they stop needing to please, they stop being responsible for our parents' happiness. But at the same time, our parents learn to stop conditioning us into their own mindset and allow us to actually to grow up to be the man that we were meant to be.
Now, I have a question that you were talking about, that we have to grow up. So there is a point we have to grow up. We have to let go of the boy. We have to take responsibility. Now, in today's society, as everything is about me, like in the self-development industry, I'm gonna make the money. I'm gonna be successful. Famous people will love me. So it's all about me, me, me. So how do I, as a selfish person, find the reason for myself? So I want to become a man, right? It doesn't go like someone tells to me, you have to. Who gives a, right? Um, how do I, as a selfish person, get to that point that I realize that probably my best interest is to go through initiation? Does it make sense?
That's a big question. Because I don't, but no, but like, as much as I believe, as much as I've learned and believed in the importance of initiation, I don't think initiation in the context that I'm talking about has a place in our world anymore. I don't see our culture, as particularly in North America, kind to this kind of ceremony, right? They would think about it being cruel and unjustifiable and sort of too old traditional way, right? So there needs to be progress, right? But I do think that, in my coaching, what I do is I bring people along a journey of self-discovery, which is not about giving you all the props and affirmations that I'm a powerful human being, but is an introspective journey to understand who you are as a human being and what is it about yourself that you need to bring to the world. So deeply introspective and deep inquiry into your values, into your talents, your passions, opening you up to recognize your point of view of what you're observing in the world. Where is there pain? Where's there opportunity? Where's there possibility? And get you to really think about your place in all of this and your responsibility in all of this and how you can act, what we call is living a life on purpose. Now that I discover who I am, how do I bring this to my relationships? How do I bring this to my world more whole and more complete? So instead of going about and initiating ceremony, I think there's ways that we can provoke people or persuade people or encourage people into a deeper conversation about who they are as a human being and what do they mean to the world that they live in. But that's work that can be done still.
Doesn't there have to be kind of like a internal need coming up in a person so they realize that this has value?
An internal need?
Yeah.
So give me
Like,
an
so
example. What do you mean?
So, okay, what is it to me? How I grew is basically I realized that it's my own best selfish interest to start taking responsibility, to start caring about others, because then my life improves, I grow, and I have a better human experience. So it's a process, but through marrying, through going through life, through taking responsibility for the community, all of these, I realized that if I'm selfish, things just kind of turn out bad.
Yeah,
Simply.
unfortunately.
So I kind of realized that I'm feeling better, things working better. I achieve what I want if I grow up, and
Yeah.
that's not the easy path. But no one told me. Haven't got a dad. I haven't got other dads. I remember when I was a child, I tried to ask about how to be a man, and no one told me, and I was kind of angry
Oh, yes.
that I had to find it for myself. That in order to create a better world for myself, in order to have a better experience, I have to take responsibility. But I not have to, like someone tells me. It's like I want to. There is a need. So
Yeah.
that's a kind of gap I was feeling there and wanted to point to.
No, there's becoming the new normal, right? In the sense that what I mean is that, if we look at older cultures where you had elders who looked after the young people and saw to it that, okay, it's time for them to be initiated. You never felt that anguish, right? Of feeling that anger of having it never been done. So the new normal is that you have to come to a point in time in your life where the adversity in your life is so outrageous, whether you're tired of alcoholism, whether you're tired of drug use, whether you're tired of manipulating women, whether you're tired of being dissatisfied with your work, where you're tired of being unfulfilled in your relationships, right? Or you're hungry for deeper connections with your children, or you're losing your friends, or you lost a job, whatever it is, it's different for different people, but they come to a time where they had enough. They're pissed at their life. They're angry. They're frustrated. They don't know why things are the way they are. So there's a moment where they have to take a deep audit of what they have. Look, I've been married 3 times, right? The last time, no, my second marriage, I was 38, 39, and was married in a bad time, bad place. I shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. And I woke up to about when I hit my 40s, I said, fuck, this is another shitty relationship. I'm not happy. I've got 2 kids looking up to me, right? I'm not getting along with my ex-wife. I just had to close my business down, right? And I'm losing my friends, and something's fucked up, right? And I took an audit of my life. I agreed to my mentor, my spiritual guide teacher, to be initiated. And I said, you know what? My life's got to turn around. I've had enough of this. And I was 40. And since then, you know, my relationship with my kids couldn't be any better. I was able to, you know, I, of course, divorced my second wife, cleaned house, cleaned my lifestyle, got spiritually connected with who I wanted to be, and got remarried to an amazing woman. But because I'm a different man now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels really good to be where I'm at right now. Yeah. But you have to have that sense of adversity there to bring about that kind of change. Absolutely. One second. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. There's something going on in this conference room that I'm in right now. So yeah, please. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, 1 second.
Cool. Sure. So till that.
Samuel said something earlier, Victor, if you don't mind me reading it, or did you have some?
Please, on phone, it's a bit challenging to check, so please keep us updated.
Okay, a lot of young people today yearn for world service, but don't ever sort their own lives or even how to serve family community. I'd like take on like a perception on the points and the selfishness of children. Most children are hardwired to please their parents. Their parents. I would agree on your earlier point about role models. You see, in the age of 1 and 7, they need to build empathy. If it's not in place by that age, there does not seem to be a way to build it later on. And then Sam said, well, there was a study, I think last year or the year before, that the biggest predictor of strong social skills and empathy was the quality of a child's relationship with their father. You want to work towards enlightened self-interest. As you initiate higher degrees, you encompass the world into your sense of self. So you start to see and comprehend what is good for the group is also good for you. That was it. What Sam said.
Those are some powerful words, I think, in there too. That was really good.
Yeah, and by the way, pleasing the parents, that doesn't stop just at the parents. We become people pleasers, basically.
Oh, and that there has huge consequences for both men and women. People pleasing. There's so much he said there. One is that, you know, what resonates with me in that message is our relationships with our dads. And, you know, in North America particularly, like the chances of you growing with your father around is becoming less and less, right? Because of divorce, because of, you know, work or whatever, you know, our fathers are less and less around. And that's having a huge impact on our relationships and stuff like that. But you know, we need those presence there, and not just because we want to please them, right? But we will learn from their interactions with us. When we watch our fathers, we learn what it is to be a man at work and in a relationship with your mother and whatnot. We learn so much through that there. But because there's so fewer fathers around, in a sense, it's left to the mothers to raise the men, and that there is not a fair deal. Yeah.
No, I was just checking. Matt needs to go soon.
Okay.
So we're gonna say bye to him soon.
Yeah,
okay.
So I thought it was 3, so I need to leave. But
no worries.
That's fine. That's fine. So it was good that you showed up, and we're gonna continue.
I'll see you, man.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that, you know, if you read the book Iron John, you know, there is a time where, you know, our fathers are vitally important for our growing up, to be examples of what a man is. And then there's a time that needs to come where we break away from our fathers. We need to become not distant from our dads, but we need to recognize that we're separate from our dads. And if we don't have both those things happening, where there's a deep connection with our fathers growing up as children, and then the break between our fathers and our own identity, then we're caught always feeling hungry for that fatherhood, right? We're always caught hungry because it's not complete. Our growth hasn't been completed yet, right? So, you know, you go to things like we spoke about about self-discovery and self-help and therapy and all, to not just to restore, but to continue the work our fathers didn't finish for us, right? So
That's so me.
yeah.
Just, and it's strange because I'm aware since this day that, so I have my father in blood, or how you say it, right? And the father who basically raised me, and I don't really have that feeling to my original father, right?
Hmm.
uh, I love him, you know. There is an intellectual understanding of it more, but there is a deeper feeling to the father who raised me. And uh, I realized that I had this kind of magnetism towards mentors. And sometimes were falling into this almost like um, being uh, fanatic, like fanatically following mentors, just because I had this kind of inner feeling, this kind of inner desire
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
reverence.
Yeah.
So I really feel for that.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's even though even though we long for connections with our biological dads, right? They can't do the whole work themselves either, right? Even in this day and age when we talk about being a man, like, you know, the most important thing for men now is to build groups of men, is to find their tribe of men, right? Is to feel connected, and men of all ages, not men of just your age, but find older men to be connected with, find younger men to be connected with, right? One of my best friends now, he's got to be 68 years old, right? But I learned so much from this man, and he pulls out the best of me, right? And we need that community of men. And I think that there, you know, is missing in this culture where we put so much um, stock in our fathers and our biological fathers. But in the truth of the matter is, we need tribes of people to feel whole. We need to belong to a village. We need to belong to a tribe. We need to belong to a community where there is a wide array of men and there's a wide array of women, not just their mothers and not just their fathers, right? So, you know, I was fortunate enough in my family to grow up with both my dad and a grandfather in the same house for most of my life. So what my dad didn't teach me, my grandfather taught me, and vice versa. But that's not common anymore, right? So, you know, and it's becoming less than common even just to have your father around, right? So,
Yeah, and what we usually do, oh, sorry, John. So what we usually do is that we reach out to these role models in movies, commercials,
oh,
famous people, wealthy people. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not the same. You just don't have that intimate connection. You don't really
right.
know who they are. You cannot sit down with them for a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. And remember, you're falling in love with a persona, right? When you're looking at idols like musicians or movie stars or, you know, people on these talk shows and whatnot, you're falling in love with their persona. You're not falling in love with their humanity because you don't know them, right? And I don't think that works either. I think you need to find people that you can, at a moment's notice, reach out to and connect at a human level. It's like, okay, where there's vulnerability and integrity and strength and wisdom and all that in your communication and your connectedness,
Charles, I have
right? So
a question for you, and that was, where do female role models fit into this regarding men growing up? Where does the mother come into this, the sister, that kind of thing?
interesting question. Well, of course, our growing up is to have relationships with the women, right? Like if you're a straight man, and I'll speak for straight men, you want to learn how to have be self-expressed and to listen powerfully and to, you know, experience intimacy and different scales of intimacy, and that happens with the opposite sex, right? You know, one of the things I pulled away from my relationship with my mother and my grandmother and my aunts is how to be honest with women, right? And how to hold a space where the woman could be self-expressed with me. And now that's finally showing up in my marriage with my wife, right? Is that so? Women have different needs. Women have different purpose. Women have different functions, right? And it's the job for the man to recognize their uniqueness and what they bring into our world. And I think we learn that through how our women, or like our sisters, our aunts, or our grandmothers, or mothers, how they interact with the world. I think by observing that, then we can learn our place in their world. So it's very important to have strong connections with women, absolutely. But the thing is I'm talking about is that we can't go to women to fix our shit, right? Women, our mothers, they're not the people to fix us as men. We need men to fix us. We need men to help us get over our own stuff. You know, one of the things I go back to is our mothers can nurture us as children, but our mothers can't make us men. We need men to do that.
It's interesting that in the Iron John, by the way, look up the book. I also shared in the group summary, and you can find stories in YouTube. Maybe you find it as Iron Hands. But in the story of Iron John, there is a really important moment at the beginning of the story when the boy meets with Iron John, and Iron John, the boy plays with the golden ball, which means like as we play with like innocent but not really responsible ideas in the world, and this magic or this golden ball goes to the Iron John's cage, and the Iron John only gives it back if the boy steals the key from his mother. So there is like an important connection that the boy, in order to start his journey, has to steal the key from his mother. And I'm curious, what's the kind of the symbolic part there?
Well, there's a couple of things in our relationship with our moms that's unique. One, keep in mind, biologically speaking, we are quite different from mothers, because we're men, right? Daughters are obviously a very natural extension of the mother. They share the same feminine energy, right? However, the boy child, is quite different from the biology of their mother. So that there's one thing. But there is an agreement, almost a psychic agreement between the mother and the son. One, the boy is their mother's guardian, right? The boy is the mother's guardian, and there's a psychic understanding that the boy is actually the guardian of the mother's bedroom. That's how deep that connection is between the son and the mother. But there's also a connection, there is also an understanding that the mother holds the key to the son. And that's the bond, right? Now, in order for a boy to grow, they need that key back. And that's where the break happens between mothering a boy and being a mother to a man. They need that key back. They need to break that bond. A boy cannot continue to be the guardian of the mother if he's going to have a wife of his own, right? And he can't continue to be a child if the mother's holding the key to his manhood, right? So he needs to make those breaks. He needs to reclaim that. And when you look at the thing about the golden ball, which is a beautiful metaphor, when you get right into reading about the golden ball, that's all of his passion. That's his talent. Those are his strengths. And as a child, you're playing with this thing with such an immense curiosity and wonderment, right? But if you don't actually embrace that ball throughout your life, then you lose it, right? And then you become less fulfilled. You become incomplete. You lose the sense of curiosity in your life. You don't explore your talents and strengths fully. You need that golden ball. So there's the trade, right? One is I have to abandon my parenting. I have to abandon my mother, and I have to follow my wild man. I have to follow my inner wisdom. I have to discover who I truly am and recognize what are the gifts I bring into this world. And you have to do that. You have to make those breaks, right? And that goes back to initiation again.
John, is there anything from the comments?
Yeah, something very interesting came up in the comments from Samuel. He said the essential problem between men and women across all human societies, is that women carry intrinsic value as childbearers, where men have no intrinsic value. However, by having no intrinsic value, we are blessed with more agency, whereas women's lives have been historically more prescribed. What happens is women hate the relative lesser agency, which is why we have feminism, and men resent the lack of intrinsic value. And if you don't work on self-knowledge, both genders are in danger of alienating the other. I'd suggest looking into the philosophy of the chemical wedding, which resonates with the Jungarian concepts of anima and animus. That's what Sam said.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand or agree with with what he was saying about that we don't have an intrinsic value. I think where we find value has changed. I do believe both women and men have a natural place in the order of things, and we do have value. It just doesn't look the same. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about the differences between women and men, and it hasn't changed for thousands and thousands of years. What it is changing is the perception of how it looks, right? Men are the protectors. Men are the providers. Men are they seek to contribute and to feed. Women's intrinsic value, if I was to point to anything, is to own the relationships that connect everyone, right? They are the connectors. They are the nurturers. They are the glue that holds family and community together. But men are warriors, and I don't mean soldiers that go out and kill. I mean warriors in the sense that they have a purpose to protect, defend, transfer of knowledge and wisdom, and all of that. But I think a lot of that is lost now, right? And what I see in feminism particularly is when women are trying to trespass on that, where then our value is diminishing because women are demanding to be more in what where our natural instinct goes. They want part of that. They want to be champions. They want to be protectors. They want to be guardians. They want to be all of these things that men have been since the beginning of our time. So I think so I'll just leave it at that. But there's some interesting points he brought up in there, but I'm not sure if I agree with all of them.
My own view is if the apocalypse happens in the morning and a handful of human beings survive and all these feminists and stuff are around, that basically when shit hits the pan or whatever you want to call it, women will look up to us in the same way again, and they might actually give up on trying to. I don't know if you'd say be like men. What do you think, Charles?
Look, I've shared a lot of posts with my wife about, what feminists are saying about men and what feminism activists, like extreme feminism, talk about men. I share that with her all the time. And she'll tell me, it's like, I don't want any soft men in my life, especially my husband.
Yeah.
Right? I want a man who has the balls to stand up for our family. I want a man who can envision where our future is going. I want a man who can, defend his, be a stand for what he believes is right. Right? That's what she wants. They want a strong man. Women need strong men. And I think when you talk about the feminist movement, that's really driven because they can't find any strong men.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? They can't find men who actually could get the shit done. Right? So I think when, even in the Iron John book, it opens up about feminism and the feminist movement. I think there's definitely need for women to become more themselves, right? And live into what all femininity can bring, right? And I think that there was the beginning of the feminist movement because there was men who were suppressing femininity, right? Now they're over that. Now they want more. Why? Because as a response to that, men have become soft, right? Men have become, lacking vision, lacking direction, and not understanding clearly where to put their power, right? And instead of becoming strong men of integrity and vision and whatnot, we become violent or we become very soft. And neither of those spectrums are working for us right now.
I have a question for you, Charles. Have you ever seen a movement called Men Going Their Own Way, or known as MGTOW? Have you ever seen?
I've heard it. Yes, I've heard of this, but I haven't done much research on that. So I'm not going to be able to answer much about that. But you can share with me what you found out about that.
With what I know of MGTOW so far is they claim that I don't know if this is the right word, hypergamy, that society is full of hypergamy, and even traditional institutions like the Catholic Church have been feminized and stuff. And as well as that, they think that all the laws are basically set to be against men, that, men, while society is so much hypergamy, if that's the right word for it, men will basically get shafted because everything is designed now to favor the women, and that women have more rights than men, and these men are refusing to get married because the system is so against them. They're kind of saying, you know what, we're going to keep our resources to ourselves, we're going to live alone, society is shit, so we're going to protest against this, shitstorm that society is created because it became so hypergamous, or I don't know, I'm probably getting that word wrong.
Right. Well, and let me speak to something you just said there about everything being influenced by the feminine. And I think that I've had a number of conversations with other men leaders in men's groups and stuff like that, and that there is where we are right now. A lot of the conversation about masculinity and what people are using, and I'm not a big fan of this word toxic masculinity. A lot of the posts out there are written by women feminists, right? And they're putting their layer on it, but they don't understand who we are. They don't understand what makes a man a man. They don't get it. So they're putting their feminine layer on it and making it as if that's true stuff. And I find that as just as dangerous, right? I think that's misleading. It's dangerous. I think it puts men in a defensive position where they're acting out. And going back to the earlier thing is if men don't find a way out of their boyhoodness and become properly functioning adult men, then we're going to respond to these challenges immaturely. We're going to respond to them with frustration and anger. We're going to revolt. We're going to abuse people. We're going to get stuck in alcoholism and whatnot. and all these things. So I think it's time for us guys to wake up to what we are to be properly functioning human beings. And I see there's a lot of movements around, raising men up to that new standard. Not a new standard, but, a proper way of being in this world. And it's just the right time for all of us to get together and do that, however that works for you.
Yeah, Sam wanted me to say one more thing. And he said, by intrinsic value, I am referring to the men's role to protect and lay down their lives to protect the women. Thus, men's lives have been historically assigned less value. We need fewer men to produce the next generation. And then he said, modern feminism is afflicted with the worst elements of Marxism and communism. That's where it's gone wrong. That was what Sam said.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That I would love to inquire more about that, but that's pretty interesting stuff.
So Charles, when you're going down to do this ritual with the guys, could you walk me through how the ritual goes if we have the time, if you wouldn't mind walking us through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're the teacher that I work with, he's deeply educated in traditional arts in this part of the world, so indigenous culture, native Indian arts and whatnot. So one of the things you guys can look up are what is called a vision quest. And essentially what that looks like is that men are gathered in a welcoming ceremony called a sweat, which there's rounds of prayer and blessings and whatnot. And then each man walks out into nature and fasts for 4 days. They find a spot wherever that may be, quiet, in solitude and whatnot, and you're essentially sitting for 4 days in meditation, exposed to the nature of things. So, and usually what it is that a man would go out with very limited resources. No, you're not tenting, you're not hunting. In this particular ceremony, there's none of that. You are fasting, so there's no food and water for 4 days. And what all that allows you to do is be very mindful where you are. All sense of time slows down. You really get to hear the voices that are within you. And if you allow yourself to go into the experience of it, you actually open yourself up to the nature of things that surround you. And, a number of things happen. The consequence of this experience is that you start to dream things. You dream what your life is. You dream what your life was. You dream of what you want for your world, wherever that is. And those dreams are clues to who you are as an individual and what purpose you have in this place. And then when you return, then the work begins, right? How to live that. How to discover what you saw up there when you were out in the world during your quest, and the sense of it is you come back with a greater sense of responsibility for you as a human being. But yes, your 4 days of fasting in the nature of things. We were in we'll be in a forest for 4 days. And then. From an architecture standpoint, there's people surrounding this place as support. So in case somebody can't, there's been times where you can't, some people can't last 4 days. So they come down beforehand, but they don't arrive naked. They don't arrive without or abandoned or alone or isolated. They arrive back to their community of people who are there to support them. So that's the rough architecture of it, yeah.
Awesome. Sam said there's a mountain in Wales where people used to go up for a sort of initiation and spend the night, and he said you'd either come down a poet or a madman. That's interesting. Yes, I can imagine that. Like I've done this myself personally. I've done this a number of times, and yes, both are definitely
both of those scenarios can definitely happen. You do need a sense of patience. You do need a sense of deep sense of courage to do something like this, and enough stupidity, because if you go in there too intellectual, that will just drive you nuts, right? So you do need a sense of naivety to go into something like this, because you can't tell what's going to occur for you.
I just had one more question, then I'll give it back to you, Victor. So I just need to ask this, and I think it's very interesting. So we're talking all about initiation. However, how are parents meant to prepare their child for the initiation? Surely the process leading up to preparing the child for initiation is possibly as important as the initiation itself. So what would you say about that?
Well, this is where I was telling you, parenting has to stop. Right. So in traditional cultures and indigenous cultures, it wasn't the parent preparing the child to be initiated. It was elders. Right. It was the leaders of your community, of your village, of your tribe. They were the one who prepares them, because the parent will continue to parent. And the idea here is we need the parents to stop parenting. Right. So, we need one of the things we're missing in our culture is we don't have elders we look up to, who have this kind of wisdom and way of being, where they believe in initiation in this way. So yeah, in preparing, you need people who can stand up for the child that's not the mother and father. Great. All right.
Are there any last questions, like before we wrap up?
Was there anything you wanted to say, Sam? Or if Sam has nothing to say, Charles, was there anything you forgot to say that you feel is important?
Oh, I think we covered quite a bit in an hour. We can cover so much more, but this was great, and I had a lot of fun sharing this with you guys.
Yeah, it was really valuable, really amazing. I feel that we could discover a lot of topics, and
Yes.
I also feel that this was like a really good package, so we can like put a bow tie to the whole thing. It was definitely, so I definitely learned a lot around ceremonies and what does it mean to be a man. It's definitely would be nice to hear more about, or even like having like a snapshot of how these ceremonies look like. I don't know, do you have any videos? I know probably it's not something you record, or do you have like materials, right? It's like, it's really intimate, right?
You definitely don't record events like this. There's a certain reverence and sacredness to these events. So, but there's a lot of information about different types of rites of passage or different types of ceremonies. There's tons of books on it. There's tons of resources online.
It's just really exciting, and I never heard about it like this.
Right.
So thank you for sharing.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, man. This is really fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And also, what are you up to? Anything you want to share? Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook, right? I'm part of this group with you, so you can definitely friend me on Facebook. I do have a program in which I launched this year called the Manifesto Project, the Journey to Self-Discovery, which borrows a lot of the stuff that we just spoke about. You can find that at manifestoproject.net. That's actually a Facebook group I'm running now. But yeah, find me on Facebook, friend me, and we'd love to talk more.
Great. Anything you, John?
Oh, right. I was just going to say, Charles, I was just going to ask you before this ends, would you mind if I contact you on Facebook and give you some more resources on some of the stuff we discussed, and ask you something there, if that's okay with you?
Absolutely. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
Great.
All right, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here and having this amazing discussion around initiation and manhood. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Charles.
Thank
and
you.
have a great day. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, thank you.